I recently reintroduced the Accountability Through Electronic Verification Act this Congress, as I have in previous Congresses. This common sense bill would require all employers to use e-verify programs, which in turn would ensure that they're employing nothing but a legal workforce. As most Americans have realized, the immigration debate here in the Congress today and for a long time has become highly partisan and obviously then controversial. Of course, worst of all then, it's become completely unproductive. I believe that there's a sliver of hope, however, and that is through the passage of an e-verify program that makes e-verify mandatory. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're for open borders or you want secure borders, we all ought to agree that enforcing the law and protecting Americans is a bipartisan goal. In 1986, the Immigration Reform and Control Act made it, for the first time, a federal crime to employ undocumented workers. 10 years later, in 1996, Congress created a new tool to verify employment eligibility known as e-verify. E-verify is a voluntary program today, giving employers a web-based tool to verify the identity and employment of new employees, meaning the eligibility of those new employees. I've worked to renew and expand the program for use in all 50 states and to allow for information sharing between federal agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security. Participating employers then tap into a user-friendly, free electronic system that cross-matches documents provided by employees on their I-9 forms with federal records that are available to show the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the Social Security Administration, and the Department of Homeland Security. So you get comparisons of records that a worker applying for a job can be compared with government records to know whether somebody is legally in the country. Today, e-verify provides instant verification for more than 750,000 employers and businesses all across America. In fact, my office, because I hire employees that the taxpayers pay for, but I'm responsible for their employment, my Senate office uses e-verify when hiring our staff. And I have found it to be quick and easy to use. At my annual 99 county meetings that I have throughout Iowa, I regularly hear about the growing economy, rising wages, and the vitality of Main Streets. Iowa now ranks first in the nation for the lowest level of unemployment. That also means there are growing challenges for employers in my state to hire the workforce needed to grow and expand. And I'll bet a lot of my colleagues hear that in their respective states as well. We need to make sure hiring practices don't harm U.S. workers or those authorized to work in the United States. That's why I reintroduced the bill I announced in the first words of my speech today, the Accountability Through Electronic Verification Bill. This legislation will help businesses comply with immigration laws by certifying the legal status of their workforce. The bill would permanently authorize the E-Verify program and require employers to use the program to determine worker eligibility. It would then make every employer have to use it, except as contrasted for the last couple decades on a voluntary basis. For decades, the E-Verify has served as a proven tool for employers that want to use it. It's helped to reduce incentives for illegal immigration and safeguard job opportunities for Americans and other legal workers. Expanding the system to every workplace will improve accountability for all businesses and take another very important step toward putting American workers first. Current law requires all contractors doing work for the federal government to use E-Verify. Repeating for a third time now the mandatory aspect of this compared to the voluntary aspect of the present law. States that have passed laws mandating the use of E-Verify also may require employers to participate, for example, as a condition of business licensing. With low unemployment across the country, and with Iowa leading the way, policymakers have a responsibility to ensure the growing economy has the workforce that it needs to continue to do the growth of the last few years. As a former chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I worked extensively to protect the integrity of employment visas and work permits for foreign workers. A top priority must be to ensure immigration policies aren't displacing American workers or depressing wages. Making E-Verify a permanent and mandatory requirement for all U.S. employers will bring across-the-board certainty to hiring practices throughout our country. Certifying the legal status for prospective hires makes common sense, and having in place the tools at one's fingerprints makes it a simple, convenient solution. E-Verify is a proven tool to encourage legal immigrants to apply for unfilled jobs and to deter illegal immigration and human trafficking. In addition to making E-Verify permanent and mandatory within 1 year of enactment, my bill would increase penalties for employers who illegally hire workers unauthorized to work in our country. The bill would also require employers to check the status of all current employees within 1 year using E-Verify system and terminate employment of those found unauthorized to work in the United States. This bill establishes a demonstration project in rural areas without internet capabilities to assist small businesses. Finally, the bill would require the Social Security Administration to improve its efforts to detect identity theft using Social Security numbers. Expanding E-Verify will help restore integrity and trust in our nation's immigration system by curbing the incentives for hiring persons unauthorized to work in America. I was pleased to hear that my colleague, now Chairman Graham of the Judiciary Committee, highlight the benefits of E-Verify in a hearing held last week. He's right. Nation E-Verify would go a long ways to relieve concerns about illegal immigration and workforce displacement. So let me repeat. This bill would not change immigration law. All it does is ensure that businesses are complying with existing federal law through a quick, cost-efficient, and proven online method of proving that people are legally in the country and legally able to work here. It is a simple first step towards tackling larger issues within immigration. In other words, bringing credibility to our immigration system, where credibility has been lost because for the last 20 or 25 years, we in Congress have been telling the American people we're going to control the border, and only people could come here legally. And we haven't done it. So we got to do things to build up credibility if you're going to deal with the issues like, what do you do about the 10 or 11 million people that are unauthorized to live and unauthorized to work in America? Some people say, well, you're going to load them up and get them out of the country. But that isn't realistic and wouldn't be humanitarian. But to deal with that issue, we got to have credibility for the whole immigration system. And E-Verify will help that, along with everything we're doing to control the borders. And we got to do more to control the borders. So this is, again, for repeat, simply a first step to tackling larger issues within immigration. And best of all, it has the support of the American people. A recent Zogby poll showed that mandatory E-Verify enjoys widespread support from voters. 74% of all voters polled support mandatory E-Verify. In fact, the support is very bipartisan. The poll showed that roughly 55% of the Democrats, 78% of the independents, and nearly 91% of Americans support the idea of E-Verify. Support for nationwide E-Verify isn't just nonpartisan. It's supported by Americans across all ethnic boundaries. 58% of Hispanic voters, 52% of Black voters, 74% of Asian voters polled all support E-Verify. I'll close with this. Perhaps it's time that Congress and both parties take a very deep breath and listen to the American people instead of to our own echo chambers. Before we discuss expanding guest worker programs or discuss comprehensive immigration reform, let's first codify, E-Verify, and restore the American people's trust in our immigration system. I suggest the absence of a quorum.